In this conversation on the Dads Making a Difference podcast, I'm sitting down with Luke Fernandez. Luke is an incredible guy, and his journey from darkness to light is nothing short of inspiring. And I knew that this would be a powerful episode right now, this month in June, as June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. Luke's story is raw with vulnerability. Luke shares his battle with depression, body image issues, and even suicidal ideation. But Luke is going to offer you some hope in a time where men are feeling the weight of the world on their shoulders. Men are dying in isolation, and mental health has never been more important than it is right now. Luke is going to share a poignant reminder that while we all face struggles, that our lives might not be as perfect as they seem on the outside, that conquering self-created adversity will lead you to true self-mastery. But you can't do that on your own. You need a band of brothers. You need a community. You need support to do those things. And Luke is going to give you 4 keys that you can use so that you can live a life of self-mastery, so that you can be fitter in mind, body, and spirit. He's also going to give you powerful habits for true growth and self-mastery that you can implement each and every day. It's a powerful episode, my friend. June, Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. If you know a man who needs to hear this episode, share it with him now. Reach out to him. Say, brother, I'm here. I'm for you. I'm with you always. Let's dive in to this conversation on the Dads Making a Difference podcast with Luke Fernandez. Luke, welcome to the Dads Making a Difference podcast. Man, it's good to see you this morning.
Thank you, Cam. I'm so happy to be here. So happy we can get this done.
It was a little bit of a trick to get it done. Well, and I apologize for that. If you're listening to this, this is on a little bit on the fly this morning. Luke and I have been able, it's a Saturday. I'm pulling him away from his family, which, Luke, I appreciate you taking time away from your family to be here. But we ran into some tech difficulties yesterday and had to do a last minute reschedule. But I think that flexibility and your openness and your approachability in me reaching out and saying, hey, man, we got to do this a different time, speaks to who you are. It speaks to how you connect with men. It speaks to the kind of father and husband you are. And so I'd love to dive into you, your background. Man, you got a powerful story. And that's one of the main reasons I wanted to have you on. So Luke, why don't you give us a little start of like, what was it like for you growing up? What got you to the place that you are now?
Yeah. Well, first I want to point out kind of what you were just saying about how we've had some weird mishaps with, technology difficulties these past couple of days, and, how I've been able to be flexible where I wasn't able to back in the past. Something I constantly say to myself and to my clients and just people around me is conquering self-created adversity leads to true self-mastery. And what that means for me is the more you create things that seem to be hard to you and the more you accomplish those things, then when life's unexpected adversities comes at you, you can kind of deal with them, bend, be a little flexible, and adjust a lot more easier than maybe you were able to before.
No, I love that, man.
That's a tip for everybody. Do something hard. And for me, that all started with working out and stuff like that. But to give you a little snapshot of my history, my past, growing up, my parents got divorced when I was 4. My dad, I learned later on, wasn't too great of a man or a husband to my mother. And then, we got to see him once or twice a month. And unfortunately, my dad was a very hard worker. So that was great. I got my great work ethic from him, but he also liked to kind of just pawn off the relationship of being a father more with money. Like, I needed him. He was very handy. I needed him to help me work on my truck or do stuff with me. And he'd be like, here's the money, just go get it fixed. And growing up, I didn't understand, but come to realize now, like, no, I needed more than just that father time, So I say that my parents got divorced, and that led to financial hardships with living with my single mom who raised me and my sister. And then also that led to an eating disorder that I got kind of mentored in a bad way by my mother. We both dealt with our emotions through food, whether it was a happy emotion, a sad emotion, anger, joy, whatever, it was food. And we're Italian, so Italians like to eat. I know a lot of people know that and they experience that. My grandma was the type that she was the matriarch of the family, where you weren't even done eating dinner yet and she was bringing out second and third dessert already.
Mhm.
So needless to say, I had put on a bunch of weight in my younger years, and most of that came on when I was coping with depression. That's the way I knew how to make myself feel better for a little bit, was to
Yeah.
get my friend Little Debbie and have a few snacks. And unfortunately, that led to me in high school and early, adulthood years being quite overweight, which then just kind of piled on the depression even more. And then one day I met a woman. Well, I shouldn't say I met a woman. I had met her previously. One day I eventually fell in love with her. And that was literally the thing in my mind, was like, I need to try to get healthier, because there's no way she would want to be with a fat, out of shape man like me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
And
that,
I just want to go back to what you just said.
yeah,
Guys, people listen to stories like this. Oh yeah, sure, this guy gained a little bit of weight and now he's in shape. But if you go to your Instagram account and you see the pictures of you when you were younger, like
yeah.
y- you're half of like you're half of who you were.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. A lot of people say that. I say, like, that was the Luke that ate this Luke.
Yeah.
Um, in middle school I started putting on weight. So like I was one of the first fat kids in middle school, and then high school it just continued. Yeah, I weighed 280 pounds and I'm 5'8". So that is a lot of body weight, a lot of body fat on somebody. Um, and like you said, you see the pictures and the transformation's pretty crazy. And I lost 143 pounds at one point. I got too skinny. I got down to 137 pounds, which
Wow.
that is losing a whole human person.
Yeah.
Um, and then that led into a bunch of mental and physical battles of, okay, hey, you got to stop just doing cardio and not eating, and start
Right.
eating to fuel your body, and start building on top of that with resistance training. So for me, like, physical training, that is the best training for mental health as well, for me, because I've gone through so many different aspects of it, and it has trained my mind in so many different ways too.
Yeah. So you met your soon to be wife, you fell in love, and that was the turning point. That was the I am diving into this. I'm not going to live like this anymore. And you started a journey. How old were you then?
I believe I was right about 20 years old,
Wow.
um, at my heaviest weight. Literally, her and I went for a walk at a park. We went for a hike, and I still can't even remember. I probably blacked out on this big hill that we were hiking, because I don't see how I was physically capable of doing that. So we go up to this. There's like this really awesome scenic bluff area. It overlooks a river and a bunch of trees and stuff. And I'm sitting back. At that point, I was afraid of heights too. Um, and I'm sitting back, and she's kind of on the edge of this cliff, and I had that weird feeling in the pit of your stomach, like,
Yeah.
oh, what is this, butterflies? Why do I feel kind of weird? Why do I feel almost nauseous? Literally didn't say anything to her. Spent the rest of the day hanging out. Went home, and I asked my sister, who's a few years older. Literally, I'm 20 years old, never been in love, never anything like that. Said, what does love feel like? And she explained to me, she's like, well, if you can't sleep very well, or maybe you're not you're hungry, but you don't feel like you can eat, it's almost like a sickness, but it feels good. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'm in love. That's weird. And literally was like, me being a male, I was like, well, she might not want to be with a big guy who, in the act of, you know,
Yeah.
might not be too fun or comfortable. So I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to stop eating.
Yeah.
And went from eating junk food and frozen pizza and candy and soda every single day to just like cold turkey stopped. And I was like, I think grilled chicken and apples and salad are healthy. So that's what I started doing. And then I started getting really active too.
Yeah.
Super uncomfortable, but that's how I learned how to grow. That's what I think everybody should get uncomfortable. We should seek things that seem hard and then accomplish them, like I said earlier.
Yeah. I love it. To go along with your physical transformation,
Mhm.
I've spoken about this often with guys because a lot of people go through physical transformations in some sort or another, but it doesn't always align with their mental transformation.
Yeah.
They will try something physical to make up for something mental.
Yeah.
And they'll I go back to my story. I shared a bit with you about Fight the Dad Bod. My origin story for that was, pretty much starving myself to get a desired aesthetic look. But in my head, I was not in the right spot. What was it like for you during that period of time? Like you stopped eating, you finally found a place where you're like, okay, now I'm going to fuel the right way. I'm going to exercise the right way. But what was it like for you mentally as your body changed physically?
Yeah, so going back to that time, one of the most difficult things I remember was how many times I had to buy new clothes because I dropped so much weight.
Yeah.
I went from a double X shirt and 44 pants all the way to 29 pants and small shirt. And then of course I went back up to like large and 34s. Now as minuscule as that is, like that's not a big obstacle to overcome or a big issue, but like that's when I started realizing, oh, like I'm a different person. I'm a different person multiple times over. And even still, it's been 13-ish years since I've lost all the weight and started building muscle and everything. Like even still, majority of the time I feel like that lost fat little boy and teenager.
And what is that
And
like? What does that look like when you feel that? And I want to go there because I think it's important because we
yeah.
we hear things like that, and I want to go there, and I know you're open to it because there's
Mhm.
somebody listening to this right now. It's like, man, I got everything going for me, everything's improving, but why do I still feel like I'm stuck in the old me?
Yeah. Yeah, I think like one of the biggest things, and I had somebody ask me this a couple weeks ago, about body dysmorphia feelings. And I think for me, it was when I looked like that,
Hmm.
when I was super overweight, I avoided mirrors like at all costs. Like I just never looked at myself, never thought to. And even now, still, I don't do it because I don't know if it's because I just don't think I look better or I don't realize it. But then there's times where I catch myself in the mirror and I'm like, whoa, hey, who's that? Like, wow, you look better, you look good. And I think it's almost a safety mechanism to where, especially men, speaking from myself, is like I'm afraid to open myself up emotionally to what's going on mentally. So if I don't look in that mirror and I see a new person who looks better, who's more confident, but I don't feel that way in my mind, well, if I don't look in the mirror and see that person, I might not have to put in the effort to really grow into being that person.
Yeah.
Like you've heard new level, new devil. I'm sure you've
Hmm.
heard that before.
Yeah, of course.
Well, as people who are physically active, who train to get results, we get new levels. And the new devil that I face is usually in my mental health, my mindset. Um, and it's always like we're not satisfied. We want more. We want to achieve more. And for a long time, when I was working out, when I was eating better, all that stuff, I didn't have the right intention.
Mm.
So I learned about integrity just a few years ago. And integrity, I think the main principle is like you have integrity with your word, with what you tell other people, but mainly with what you tell yourself, which that was a huge, like mind blown thing for me. I never thought about keeping my word to myself, which I think a lot of people struggle with. We're so much better at keeping our word to somebody else. And
Hmm.
I think it's because they can see and they can judge. And hopefully, if they're honest, loving people, they tell us the truth.
Yeah.
But a lot of times we don't love ourselves enough to tell ourselves the truth. So keeping integrity with yourself means you got to be honest with yourself. But it also, integrity for me meant what is your intention with your daily habits, with your thoughts, with your actions, with everything that you do. So once I tweaked how, for me, I go into the gym now and I have an intention, and it's kind of opposite of what I find other people do. I go into the gym to kind of address some of my mental
Mm.
blocks. I won't say issues, but if I have something I'm trying to figure out, whether it's in business or my marriage or being a father or a friend or a coach, a leader, anything that I'm kind of struggling with, I literally go into the gym and I start in the sauna. Always start in the sauna, and I kind of start prepping my mind in there. I connect with God a little bit, which for me is getting in touch with my conscience. I believe our conscience is the authentic voice of God, so we should listen to it. And then as I'm working out, I kind of get the runner's high from lifting. I don't know if you've experienced that. I know a
Yeah.
lot of people have, right?
Mm.
And so once I get to that point, I can kind of feel it. And it's like, okay, a stress is let go. I let go of trying to figure everything out. And then all of a sudden, I figure something out. I
Yeah.
figure out the tweak that I need to make to address whatever I've been thinking of. I forget who came up with it, but it's the reverse law. The more you step back from something,
Mhm.
the quicker you can actually get the answer.
That's amazing. Yeah, I've heard that. Actually, I got to share this with
Yeah.
you because I was like, I got to share this with you. Last night, my daughter's out for a sleepover last night. My son's at a hockey game with a friend, and it's just Kim and I. And we went for dinner, come home, and we're sitting on the couch, and we have a lot to talk about. And work, business, the friends that we keep,
Yeah.
the practices that we take part in. Those like we're just having a life conversation. And then my wife just like kind of starts welling up. And I was like, what is happening? And I'm quiet in that moment. Like I'm like, I don't know. She's like, Cam, I know you know this, but I know there's at least 1 week a month where you just nosedive and I don't know what's going on. I don't know how to get you out of it. You're quiet, you're stuck. She's like, it's not that you're negative, but your body person, she's like, you just are not happy. And it crushes me because it looks like you're so sad. And I know this is something I've been battling for a long time. And I know I have these peaks and valleys. But what she said was, I know for you that if you're not going to work out, that's coming on faster. I
Mhm.
know that if you get busy with all the things you feel that you need to balance, that that's going to come sooner than be put off. You
Yeah.
need to be active. You need to get into your routine. You need to feel like you're doing something. And that could be at my age, I'm 43 now. It
Mhm.
could be the 20-minute workout that I need to do as opposed to when I used to get that real like lifter's high and I'd be like,
Right.
oh, it's been 2 hours. Like, what the heck? Like, and so when you're sharing that about, you know, getting into the sauna, getting into your routine, tapping into your conscious, listening for what God has to say to you, and then you get your workout in and how this keeps you steady. It was like a punch in the gut because
Yeah.
last night my wife told me that you need to do this more often because
Mhm.
when you drop off, your entire being drops off.
Yeah.
And I can't emphasize that more that guys who are listening to this, if you are feeling like you're in the crap right now, like get active. Start with a walk. I love the post you had. You're like out walking with your kids and your
Yeah.
wife, and you're taking pictures. Like do something like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be over the top. But
Yeah.
I don't want to interject my story into your story, but I just wanted to let you know that what you just shared like hit me because it's so real and it's real in this moment. So I want to thank you for being open with it.
Yeah, awesome. I'm glad you relate to that. And I talk to people about that all the time. Somebody tells me, "Oh, I'm depressed," or "Oh, I can't," I somebody reached out to me who actually used to be on heroin. They quit heroin and now they're addicted to alcohol. They're
Mm,
an alcoholic. And they told me that. And he's like, "Hey, I see your stuff every day. It's super motivational, but I'm not doing anything.
yeah.
But it makes
Yeah.
me start thinking about it." And I'm like, "Okay, like that's good. That's cool." And my first suggestion was, the next time you want to pick up that drink or the next time you start getting negative or feeling depressed, do some jumping jacks, go for a sprint, do some push-ups, some burpees.
Yeah.
Like I do that. People are like, how many times a day do you work out? I'm like 8, 10,
All the
12.
time when I need to.
Yeah, exactly. I
Yeah.
have like at least one set workout, but if I feel a negative energy coming on, a lower frequency, I jump down and do 20 burpees. I do 100 push-ups, like whatever. Before this call, I said I need a few minutes. I busted out some push-ups because I wanted to raise my frequency. Like, not that I was
Yeah.
negative, but I wanted to raise it, like
Yeah. Yeah.
if physical activity can raise your frequency quicker than anything else. Gets the oxygen in your system. It makes it feel better. You achieve something, and that's why I'm a big proponent of get up early, work out in the morning, then you start your day off with the win, and there you go.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Uh, man, I hope you're open to diving into this because I think it's an important part of your story. Like you've emphasized the importance of that physical transformation, how you have put in practices for your mental transformation, but that mental transformation has come with some highs and some lows.
Yeah.
And you have had moments in your life, I know, that have been really low. You open to diving into that?
Let's do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got to where you were?
Yeah. I want to start with like, this is a very vulnerable part of our discussion,
Yeah.
and I'm open to sharing it because I know it can impact somebody out there. And also, I want to encourage men who are listening that you have to be vulnerable if you really want to grow. If you're around somebody you can trust, be vulnerable, be open, and you might be able to pick something up, to learn something from that. And that's all I hope that somebody learns from this. So, yeah, I've dealt with depression, and I call it dark mind state is how
Mm.
it is for me. It's just darkness around my whole life. I've dealt with it since I was around, since my parents got divorced. I mean, I started counseling in fourth grade when they got divorced and all kinds of things like that. And have often times since then, all throughout life, thought about taking my life. Um, and even after getting on the physical journey and losing the weight and building a better body and marrying my soulmate, um, I still struggled a lot because of what I was saying before. I didn't have integrity or the right intention. And I like to use the gym to block out what I
Mm.
was thinking about instead of opening up to what was going on, and at least listening to the conscience, listening to what I thought the issue was. Sometimes I wouldn't address it, or I wasn't looking for an answer, but just listening to it and just trying to sit in that feeling, being super uncomfortable, is what needed to happen. And so my wife and I had tried to have been trying to get pregnant for 6 years with no luck. And before that started, I never wanted a child. I didn't want to try. I didn't want a child. I thought it'd be a burden. I thought it'd be hard, all that stuff. And then we decided to. And of course, my poor wife has wanted to be a mother her entire life. And we couldn't get pregnant for 6 years. And we finally sought out help, got IVF treatment. And the second round of that took. We got pregnant. And so that comes with it all of its own emotions and feelings.
Yeah.
And then we were about 4 months out, 3 or 4 months out from his due date. And, that's when I started being like, oh, wow, this is real. This is happening. There's a
It's coming.
human being coming into our life that we created. Okay. And I started thinking about, how am I feeling? Oh, I'm not feeling great. I'm not feeling like a great example. I don't know how to be a father
Mm.
because my example wasn't there. All I knew is that I would be in my kid's life 100% because my dad wasn't there as much as I needed. Not only was he not physically there, but even when he wasn't mentally present with
Yeah.
us the way I needed him to be. He was an alcoholic and super depressed type of guy. Great guy, but he had those, I like to say I'm taking the good and the not so good aspects from my dad and trying to form that into my being a father to my son.
Mm.
So, I was like, I don't like who I am. Yes, I look better. Yes, I've been working on my mindset. Yes, I'm a decent husband, but I feel like I got another level to go. I can get better. And, but then I was like, how? I don't know how. I don't know what to do. I kind of stopped reaching out to people that were leading me, that could help guide me, that have been fathers and husbands. And I was at the gym. I forget what morning it was. It was April. My son was due in July. And it was sometime middle of April. I was in the gym getting my workout and had an awesome workout. I remember I was elevated. I felt great. And as soon as I walked out the door, boom, I just got hit with a wave of depression that I hadn't felt in a very, very long time.
Yeah.
I had kind of, up until this point, the weeks leading up to that, I had a few negative thoughts. But this hit me. I mean, it's like I walked into an invisible wall. Supposed to head to work that morning. I get in the car, and my in my mind, I'm just like, huh, I can't do this.
Mm.
I'm not ready. I can't be the man that I want to be. I can't be present because I'm always so At that point, worried about everything else, worried about not being good enough and all those sorts of things. So I'm going to drive my car into the river. We have a park that has a boat ramp. I was like, that's where I'm going. I was like, make sure I leave my seatbelt on. So if I try to get out, it takes longer. Like I was ready to end my life. And as I'm on my way, um, I'm on my way to the river. I tell God, who at that point I had an off and on relationship with, wasn't too sure. And I say, forgive me, accept me into heaven, or if I'm deemed to go to hell, let it be. Just take care of my family. Let them know I love them. And take care of them. And as I'm driving to the entrance of this park to drive into the river, the road was closed. They were doing construction. There was no way I could get there. And I just kind of sit there for a second, put my car in park, look up to the sky, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to work. Didn't really think much of it. The next day I went to the gym, ran into a guy who I've seen in there a bunch, and we actually know each other from like the real estate and Facebook world, but never talked to him. And for some reason I was like, I'm gonna go talk to him today. I had actually seen him at the church I attended before a couple of times too. And we started talking about life, business, and then for some reason it just spewed out of me everything that happened that previous morning. And as I'm talking to him, he points out to me, he says, so you were on your way to take your life, take yourself away from your wife and your future child, your family, and you asked God to take care of them. I said, yeah. He said, and as you were on your way, the road was closed, so you couldn't get into the river. I said, yeah. And he just said, so think about that for a second.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, do you think that God's way of taking care of your family was making sure you could be here to take care of them? I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. Kind of brushed it off. But then that same day, I had a conversation with another friend like 2 hours later, and he said the exact sentence, word for word, verbatim, that this guy did. And I was like, okay, God, that's too coincidental to be coincidence.
Yeah.
And from like that point on, I talked to my buddy, I hung up the phone, and I was like, okay, this is what I have to do, not only for my family, but I have to share my story to let other men know if they're feeling the same, if they're approaching fatherhood, if they are a father, a husband, like, you're not alone. I've been through it. Other people have been through very hard times. It's not worth it. And I just hope that my story and me teaching what I've learned in my life can help lead them away from that darkness.
Yeah, man. And now you're on a mission.
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that story. You shared a little bit with me on our pre-call, and I was like, man, are you okay with like diving into that? You're like, absolutely, because it's important. It's part of who I am. It's part of why my family is who it is right now, and my mission to help other men. So why don't you talk a little bit about your mission, what you're doing now,
Yeah.
and yeah, what keeps you fired up for this?
Yeah. So as you can see on the hat, Anomaly, that's my Instagram handle, is Anomaly Luke. Hit me with a follow. But my coaching program is called Anomaly Coaching. Why is it Anomaly? Well, I looked it up about 4 years ago. I literally voice said to Google, what does anomaly mean? She said anything that deviates or what is unexpected or normal from society. And I was like, okay, yep, that's it. So I have Anomaly Coaching. And within that, we have the fitter father figure community. And that's creating fitter father figures in every aspect, not just physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, creating a brotherhood where people can connect, hold each other accountable, motivate each other. Everything is physical fitness based because that's where I began my journey of self-development.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the foundation for self-development for everybody, no matter male, female, or how you feel, how you think. Health, fitness, nutrition, and then mindset. And it's just, you know, like I said, I'm just trying to inspire, trying to motivate and help lead men away from the darkness and into light, and know that the more uncomfortable we get, the more comfortable we become with the self-growth.
I love
Yeah.
it, man. I love it. Such good work. I love your mission. I'm curious. This is like one question that I ask everybody, and if you
Mhm.
listen to podcasts, you'll know. I always ask guys like, as a dad right now, or as a husband, what's an area that you're diving into right now? It could be an area of growth or learning or something that you're excited about right
Mhm.
now.
Something I'm excited about. Well, I mean, I'm excited every day right now since I have a 9 month old. He's young, right? And like
Yeah, yeah,
every day, just seeing him progress and him learning, and then us learning from him. And there's a lot of challenges in fatherhood early on, and I know
yeah,
I'm pretty sure they don't stop.
yeah.
Um, so, like I say, run towards what makes you uncomfortable and push through it. So there's a lot of growth there, and yeah, just me living out this potential and this passion that I have to help people. For years, people have been telling me, you need to share your story, you need to share your story. Well, I never liked sharing that I was super overweight and unhealthy, but I
Yeah.
finally realized that there's a purpose behind all of it.
Yeah.
So I'm just excited. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're excited. And I want to encourage you because, yeah, share your story because so many men are struggling and they don't think anybody else relates to them.
Mm.
Everybody else has got it figured out. They got that Instagram filter look at life, right? It's like all they see is people's best. They don't understand that people are hurting. And it takes a guy like you to be like, no, people are hurting, real people, right? I've had many conversations with men in the last even 2 weeks, Luke, who would need you, who
Yeah.
would just need to know that there is a way out. There is a way to, strengthen your body, strengthen your mind, strengthen your heart, strengthen your relationships. And I want to encourage you to share your story. This
Yeah.
is awesome. I'm glad you've decided to do it here. I appreciate you being open and vulnerable with us.
Yeah.
Um, Luke, if somebody wants to connect with you, learn more about you and the work that you do, where can they do that?
Yeah. Anomaly Luke on Instagram, and also check out anomalycoaching.com.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Luke, I appreciate your flexibility. I appreciate you taking time away from your family on a beautiful Saturday morning to be here with us. And I appreciate you. And I look forward to connecting in the future.
Yeah. Thanks, Cam. I appreciate you, and be great.